Hello, welcome back to another Fabulous River channel. Oh my god, am I chocolate? I want to be chocolate. Can I be chocolate? I'm Jacob from Jacob's Books Corner is the moral of this story. And today we're talking about my top 10 I guess it is hour since you read them with me all year. Top 10 best books of 2021. And I do have a few honorable mentions and some surprises. And so we'll go through the superlatives first and then we'll get into the top 10. And I'd like to mention for my superlatives, none of them actually pop up in the top 10 as I do believe that every category is different. So if you want to check out the top 10 worst books, I don't know which one's going up first, but they're both going up. So like if you're interested, it's there for you to check out. My honorable mentions are Better Together by Christina Ricco. I really enjoyed a lot of what was here, but I didn't enjoy the whole thing, so I don't think it deserves the best list. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. He literally liked my review. He deserves to be on this list no matter what, but I also really love the concept of this and also is my favorite title of the year, so it deserved to be here. The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare. This is actually probably my favorite Cassandra Clare I read this year. I read like 12 of them. I think the other one deserved it more, so that's why it's on the list, and I wasn't allowed repetitive authors, which is why it's down here. This is the second book in the Alec and Bing, I guess, Journey trilogy that they're doing. And then the last honorable mention is The Marionettes by Katie Weismer. I love The Marionettes by Katie Weismer. I just had a review go up about it. It was like the last video before I went on my sabbatical for the end of the year. I already have a Katie Weismer on my list, and so I did want to talk about it here because it's fabulous and I recommend. The only reason why Wicked Souls is not mentioned is because I still have yet to finish that book. Like I said, December. It's just not my month. It's just what it is. And then my surprises are Supernova by Marissa Meyer. I truly had no idea this was going to be a new favorite of mine out of like Mr. Meyer's books. This is up there with like Winter and Crest for me personally. I think those are the better ones than the Lunar Chronicles. They're really long, but I think they're amazing. And I think this is up there with those. And so I really like Supernova. Chain of Iron, that's the one that's over here. Chain of Iron, which is the second book in the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare, is also a surprise on my list for the simple fact that I didn't really enjoy Chain of Gold, which I'll talk about over in a different video. All right, let's jump back into the top 10 best books. Starting with number 10, these are ranked. I would like to say that the only book that is very certain on this list in this order is the number 1 book of the year. It has not changed since I read it. Everything else could probably be interchangeable. Number 10 is For Everyone by Jason Reynolds. This is a poem, I would say. It's a somewhat of a poem, and it is directed to you personally if you're going through an extremely rough time, you don't know what to do with your life or anything like that. I think this is a perfect book for you to pick up. It is a very inspirational book, and it's not like really trying to tell you what to do, but it's just supposed to get you back in your good self. And I think it did a fabulous job. I read it earlier this year because a coworker recommended it to me, and I could not have been more like happy with it. Number 9 is Shadow and Bones by Leigh Bardugo. This is, I don't even know how to explain what Shadow and Bone is about. Shadow and Bone takes place in the Grishaverse, and we have light versus dark. Alina versus the darkness, and that's all I'll say for it. It's fabulous. It's my favorite Leigh Bardugo I've ever read. It's also her first one, so good for her. And I just absolutely adored Shadow and Bone. I also love Dark Lena. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. I know that you're not supposed to, but I loved it all the way through the entire trilogy. So that is me, like in a nutshell. If that tells you anything about my taste. Number 8 is The House in the Curling Sea by TJ Klune. I read this in, I want to say, September. And I once again very much adored The House of Curling Sea. This is a contemporary fantasy about Linus who gets assigned a job to go look over a foster home for peculiar children, or magical children. And he meets the person who is running it. They ended up starting a cute little romance, and one of my new favorite characters of the year, not my favorite character, one of my new favorite characters of the year is Luce, who is Lucifer in the book, and he's just so adorable, and I adore him so much. I really adored that character. They're like 12. It's amazing. Number 7 is One Last Stop by Casey McQuestion. I'm actually really surprised that this book by them is so low on this list, but that's where it fell. I loved One Last Stop. I don't think it's as amazing as Red, White, and Royal Blue in my personal opinion. I don't mind that Red, White, and Royal Blue doesn't really have like a whole story elements to it. One Last Stop is it is a story. It is about a girl who moves to New York, who meets a girl on the Q train, yet she seems like from a different time, I'll say. I really like the main character of August, and I really like the main pairing here as well. The side characters are hilarious in typical Casey McQuestion fashion, and I really enjoy the seance scene. Those are the things I'm going to mention about this book and why I made this list. All these books are 5 stars, by the way, and I enjoyed them quite a bit. Number 6 is The Anti-Relationship Year by Kitty Weisner. This is where one of her books fell onto my list. And you might be asking yourself, why did this one make it period, but not like the Marionettes. Marionettes is a book one, and it really does feel like a book one. It's a great book, but it does feel like a book one. The entire relationship here is a standalone in a series of standalones, and so it does feel very different. I love Jolene from her first outing in the Anti-Virginity Pact, so obviously I had a feeling I was going to like this. This follows Jo as she heads off to college, and then it follows her freshman and senior year simultaneously. Freshman year, something horrible happens, and senior year, we're still recovering from that horrible event is the point here. And what really makes this book stand out to me, what really makes pop, is Miller. Miller is like one of the best guy characters I have ever read from. And yeah, I'm using guy specifically here. I'm genderizing it very Pacific just because like it's very Pacific. Either way. Okay. Number 6 is Yes Daddy by Jonathan Parks Rampage. I read this back in, I want to say May, maybe a little earlier than that. This is a relatively new release. It was this author's debut. This is about the Me Too movement in the gay culture. It follows a young man who is, I want to say 17, could be 18 by the time the book starts, and he is working at a restaurant job. He ends up meeting this really hotshot, like, playwright. They end up hitting it off, and they go on a few dates. He actually ends up getting invited out to his summer home, and weird things start to happen. I'm going to call it weird. It's a very graphic tale of abuse. It also has a lot to deal with a religion and conversion therapy and things, and so if those are things that really trigger you, or you really just hate reading about it, not really the book for you. It is a staple point into the Me Too movement as well, and I really like the discussions that were brought up here. I didn't mind the graphicness of it. Really graphic. It goes some like really dark places. It's probably the second to third most graphic book I read this year, dealing with SA and other things. So yeah, so just be very cautious when you read it, but I highly recommend it. Number 4 is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Clare. I want to mention that a lot of people are not really liking this. I've seen this on a lot of disappointing lists and a lot of worst lists this year. I personally think this is a stellar horror. I don't read horror very often. I watch a lot of horror, but I don't read enough horror. I have a lot of horror I want to read in 2021. I want that to be my year of horror. But out of all the horror I read this year, this is by far my standout. This is about a group of people who go into a haunted house for a wedding, and really crazy shit start to happen. The thing that stood out here the most were not the characters, because some of them are very unlikable. It was the writing. The writing here is extremely flowery, but I think with the disturbed imagery that it also pulls up, because it's a really graphic horror in certain cases, not the whole thing. I don't want you to get your hopes up here. Some of the things are very like intense and very scary and graphic. I think with the flowery imagery on top of it, just made for a surreal experience that I will never forget and could not highly recommend enough. It's also extremely short. It's the shortest book on this list, if I'm not mistaken. It's between this and For Everyone. For Everyone will take you long, like a shorter amount of time to read, but Nothing But Blackened Teeth is like 120 pages, so I could not recommend more if you're interested. Number 3 is a really long book. Actually, I think it's the longest book I read this year, and that is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I know, guys, Cassandra Clare did not make number 1 this year. I mean, if you know me, you know what number 1 is, but like it didn't make number 1. Kind of crazy. It also didn't make top 2. But like I said, I would say these two books could be interchanged. Anything in this list could be interchanged. But for when I was making it, it was Queen of Air and Darkness stuck at number 3. I really liked Queen of Air and Darkness. Queen of Air and Darkness was the end game personally too. So far, I think the ending of Wicked Souls trilogy or Wicked Powers trilogy coming up in 2023. I want to say it is. I think could also possibly be the end game of the Shadowhunters, but this felt very end game of Shadowhunters. I love the characters that are introduced in the Dark Artifice. I would like to mention that Dark Artifice did not start out being one of my favorite series by Cassandra Clare. I really didn't understand the hype until I read Lord of Shadows, and then I was like, oh, I get it. And then Queen of Air and Darkness was everything I ever wanted. It is a whole entire, like, it mixes everybody in, and sometimes I really hate that in books when you bring in old characters, but for this one specifically, I think it made a lot of sense. I also really enjoy the extra lands we go here, that's all I'll say. And also, it has Kit and Ty, which I have a literal poster of them. That's how much I love them, and that's how much Wicked Powers needs to be in my hands. Like yesterday. Number 2 is Song Achilles by Madeline Miller. This follows Achilles and Patroclus as they get ready for the Persian War, and it follows them from the ages of like 7, I want to say somewhere around there, to like 25 when the whole events happen. I'm gonna mention here, I didn't really remember Trojan War. I remember warning about Trojan War. I've also read a few books about it, but I didn't remember it very well. Moral of the story. So when reading the Song Achilles, the thing that's probably not gonna shock a lot of people really shook shook me and I started to cry about it because I was like, what? Oh my God. Because like I didn't remember it like at all. But the ending here is by far like one of the most satisfyingly depressing endings I have ever read, and it deserves on this list. The relationship between Patroclus and Achilles is like so beautiful, so lovely. I just adore it so much. And then of course, like I don't know, I couldn't say enough higher things. I literally read this really slow on purpose so I could like really just truly experience it, and I did, and I'm just so like appreciative that I did that way. My number one book of the year, let me know in the comments if you can guess it. Probably can't. And that is A Little Life by Hanya Yagera. I know this is a controversial pick for me personally for choosing this novel, and I get that. I do get that, because like it's a very, I don't, and some people think it's revolutionary for like the gay community. Some people think it's revolutionary for a whole bunch of different things. I can understand where everybody's coming from by one, certain things are a little bit offensive and so forth and so forth. I mean, you literally have a character in here named Jude who is the perfect version of how to create a character to see for your main character, for us to see them in. He has no personality. He does have personality. He has nothing to describe him because of the way that the character was built, which is fascinating to read from, but also it's extremely triggering to also read from. This follows 4 boys as they meet in college, and it follows their life from beginning to end, basically. Not really, basically. Birth to death. A little bit. Kinda. Maybe, possibly. And we have 4 characters: Malcolm, William, JB, and Jude. I don't know. There are so many reasons. I have a whole video talking about this. I also cried a lot during this video. This book has so many trigger warnings. Please read Advance. It's so hard to read. It's so graphic on paper. It's just so graphic, and yeah, so please do be cautious when coming into it, but I adored it. I knew it was a 5-star when I first started. I loved the writing here. It's some of my favorite writing I read this year. It had some of my favorite characters I read this year. Jude will forever be one of like my favorite character of all time. I will never forget Jude. Me and Jude had such similar experiences in so many different ways that I never really truly saw myself into anybody else. And yeah, also I enjoyed the little happy part. It's like 100 pages long because this book is like the book of depression, but those 100 pages I really liked. I got really jazzed with. But sometimes you just need like a really sad book, and this is definitely that book. If you're looking for it, this is it, but I don't recommend. Cannot preference that enough. Alright, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.